He's not looking for servants. He's looking for friends.
Yeah. And I just wanted to understand what that felt like.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It is another Thursday. What a great day to be alive. Today, I was surprised that this incredible man, Scott Hamilton, would come on the green room, but he did. He is an Olympic gold medalist figure skater. He's one of the founders of Stars on Ice, part of Icecapades. He is a cancer survivor and an all-around incredible guy. He's the voice of figure skating on the Olympics, and he is in love with Jesus. We got right into this conversation, so you're going to as well. But I want you guys to sit back, relax, and enjoy this incredible conversation with world-renowned figure skater Scott Hamilton. And while you do that, just hit like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Just do it, because we see analytics and you guys aren't doing it. Just do it. It helps. Leave a comment. Love you guys. Enjoy this episode with Scott Hamilton. Do you like in the wind? I mean, you're in Franklin, Tennessee, right?
We're in Nolensville.
Nolensville. How far away is that?
It's about 30 minutes.
Yeah, so not too bad.
Well, not too bad, yeah.
And we get some cold weather here.
Yeah. January is usually, you get the big freeze and the ice. And
do you ever just go out and, do you have a pair of hockey skates?
I do.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel weird?
It's different, but I mean, it takes just a couple seconds to transition over. I don't really skate anymore, so getting on figure skates right now is sort of like one of those things where I have to think about it for a second.
Really?
Yeah.
So you don't like go and do it on the weekends?
No,
with your family?
It's not. Let's just say from very first steps to the end of my competitive years was 16 years. Okay? From
Okay.
the very first, like, learn to skate.
Steps on the ice.
Yeah, learn to skate kind of in the classes, kind of, doing this, to final world championship was 16 years.
That's it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, it's 9 to 25. Yeah, it's 16 years. And then from the end of my competitive career to the end of my professional career was 20 years.
Seriously?
So 36 years of going at a pretty, high intensity level.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, okay, I milked the cow dry. There was nothing left in the cow.
Nothing.
It was just like, that's all you got.
Was it hard to stop? Because I know, like, I've interviewed some other athletes, and that moment of like, hey, I need to be done. Like I've interviewed fighters, right? When they're like, I'm done.
Yeah, that one is more glaring. Yeah, it's like, I need to be done.
But football, like I had a buddy on here from the NFL, Brian Schwartz, having that discussion. Did you ever did you ever have people be like, okay, Scott, it's time to untie the laces?
Yeah, there were but I had to edit that information, What
does that mean?
Well, because a lot of people are saying, like, you really need to think about stopping. We're from the tour that competed with the one that I was on. So it's like, are you really being my friend now? Or are you just telling me to get off the road to hurt the tour that you're competing with? So there was always that, right? But I knew it, that I was kind of like, I just didn't have the same spring in the step, because it just, it kind of goes away, after a while. And I was running out of ideas. Like, I just started running out of fresh ideas. And if you're, and I was always under the impression that if you're just going to sort of update what you did last year a little bit, then pretty soon people are going to get tired of looking at the same old thing. So
it's the same with preaching.
Yeah.
It's the exact same.
Well, yeah, familiarity kind of...
You have to keep reinventing.
It breeds complacency or contempt, right?
It does.
But it in that, so I always try to be something, the next year had to be completely different what I did the year before, and you have to be super creative to do that.
Wow.
But then you get to a point where life gets out of balance, where you become all about career, and then you don't really, your interpersonal relationships really struggle and suffer. So I had to balance all of that out. And then health issues kind of got in the way a little bit, so I was at the peak, pretty much what I thought was the peak of my professional career. And I was diagnosed with cancer. I was 50 cities into a 60 city tour. And then it was there that was where the fork in the road really happened, because I realized the tail's wagging the dog in a big, fat, nasty way. And I just, my mom lasted 2 years with her cancer, and she died.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, well, now if I'm able to get past this, I have a second chance at life. What do I want it to look like?
Wow.
And that's where I really felt, without understanding it at the time, the Lord was just absolutely just saying, I am giving you a little time out. And I really want you to just be quiet still. And I'm going to start working on you in a really profound way.
Come on.
Yeah. And so it just sort of, I got to a point where I realized that the way I was living and how I was living and just how I was with other people was just sort of surface. And it just was, I was not living the way that I was supposed to. Organically, legitimately, authentically, I was not living. I was sort of reacting to my environment.
Yeah.
And I was allowing for the circumstances of,
just life.
Just life. It was running me. I wasn't running it, you know? And in that way, like I just got up one morning and I just said, I have to move. And so I loaded up my car and I started driving. And I had a speech. I was living in Denver. And I had a speech in Colorado Springs. So I went down and I did the speech. And then I go, now what? And I go, well, I've never been to New Mexico before. Let's try that. So I just sort of drove to New Mexico. And I was in New Mexico for a while. And I'm going, sure is beige here.
It is.
Yeah.
New Mexico is a different nation.
It's the capital of beige.
Yes.
Yeah, everything
very
is
much
like,
so.
Yeah, so I was like, this is beautiful and it's unique and it's really, it's kind of like, I go, okay, now what? And so I go up, I turn right. I have a friend who runs a golf resort in Tucson. I can figure out a way to kind of, leverage that relationship a little bit to kind of hang out and figure out what's next. So on the way into Tucson, I was in cruise control and my back was stiff because when you're an athlete for a long time, certain things just tighten up. And I was sitting for too long. And so my back so I was kind of shifted in my seat and I had a very fast car. It was a very powerful car. And I like shifted in my seat a little bit. And this, like, I don't know if it was a coyote or something, but it kind of went like, it hesitated, and then it ran across the road. And I thought I was slamming on the brakes and I hit the accelerator and I turned the wheel and I spun out into the desert and I landed in this barbed wire fence and it just wrapped itself around the car. And I was able to get the car out. Yeah. But it was definitely much different than it was before it went into the barbed wire fence. And I took it to, I was able to get into Tucson. I got the car in for repair and they just said, it'll cost more to fix this car than it's worth. Yeah. And I said, well, if I give you the insurance money in the car, can you find me something new? And they said, yeah. So it took them a while. And then I was, hanging out. People were coming into Tucson to visit and hang out with me and stuff and playing a lot of golf. And then they said, we found your car and they're going to flatbed it in. And I go, how much is that going to cost? And they said, $1,000. And I was like, $1,000 is a lot of money. Where is the car? And they said, it's in Los Angeles. And I go, how much is a Southwest ticket to Los Angeles? Yep. And they said $50. And I go, that seems like a better deal to me. Why don't I just go there since I'm kind of without home, And so I ended up flying into LA. I went in, got the car, loaded it up with all my junk. And then
how old were you at this time?
I was 38.
Okay.
I was 39. It was a year after cancer. And I just sort of found a place to live and train and get ready for the next year's tour. And then just certain things happen where people that I was friends with just sort of said, hey, I want to come out and check this. There's a golf tournament. You want to play? I go, yeah. And that's the community that I played the golf tournament. I was like, this is really, really beautiful and nice. And I was talking to the general manager of the golf club, and I go, if I had all the money in the world, I'd join this place tomorrow. And he goes, where do you live? And I go, I live in Denver. And he goes, I'll be right back. And he came back with a membership packet and his card with the out-of-state membership. And I was like, I can do that. And he goes, welcome to the club. And I ended up living there, which was really wild. I ended up finding a home. It was right near a lake. Yep. And so I bought this home on the lake, and I just sort of set up shop there, and I would be there in the summers, and I'd tour the rest of the year, and I'd be there in the summers, and did that for 3 years.
Okay.
And then on the 3rd anniversary of my cancer diagnosis, we were doing some fundraising for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Yeah.
And Tony Thomas had just, he'd just gone through.
Who's Tony Thomas?
Okay, so Tony Thomas, Danny Thomas, who founded St. Jude Children's Research Hospital? His son Tony was he took over the, sort of the leadership role for the family of being on the board and doing all those things. And we were fundraising for Target House at St. Jude because Target was our corporate sponsor for Stars on Ice. And so we did a lot of fundraising for Target House, a lot of awareness, and we designed rooms. It's like an apartment building thing. And it was really fun. It was for long-term stays for families going through, again, long-term experimental treatments at St. Jude.
Such an amazing, actually the guests that I had on here last time, they stayed in the Ronald McDonald House. And they were talking about how it changed their life. They were able to start live while their baby was in NICU. But those stories, especially from working in that.
96 apartments were in Target House.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So Tony had some guests, I air quote guests, coming to the show that night. And I go, "Oh, Tony's dating? That's just good news." All right. Because his marriage went through, a separation, all that stuff. And I go, "It's good." I'm curious as to who Tony's bringing. So after the show, I went back, and there was one of his guests was standing by the production office, and there was all the families and all these little bald children backstage, and it's just beautiful to kind of be with them, and it's a big night out, and the ones that weren't in isolation were able to come, all those things they were able to kind of have a little normalcy and celebrate, just life in that way. And so I went up to Tony's guest, and I've been sort of from my cancer until after, I just was sort of not available because I felt unsettled, damaged, broken, toxic, all those things that, you kind of impose on yourself.
Yeah.
So I was all those things. Right. And so I was like, I'm not worthy of anybody. So I'm just going to work a lot and, live. And I met Tony's guest at the production office, and my heart jumped a little bit. And I was like, what was that? It was so weird. It's like, well, maybe I'm supposed to get off the bench, And I go, okay. So I kind of let that go. And then I went back to, finishing off the tours, and went back to LA, and I was playing golf with Tony, and he was on the phone, and I was like, "Is that the girl from Memphis?" And he goes, "Tracy?" And I said, I don't know her name, and he goes, "Did you like her?" And I go, I mean, what do I say right now? Because it would be really inappropriate to say, something odd happened when I met her. And I said, "You
felt the spark."
Was that your date? And he goes, no, she was just a guest. She's like a little sister. That wasn't a date at all. And I was like, oh. And he goes, "Did you like her?" And I go, "A little." And he goes, "Well, I think she's moving to LA this week. Do you want her number?" And I said, "Sure." And so I was living at that golf club, right? And my favorite caddy at the golf club was this guy named Jimmy, who was the life of the party. So much fun.
Right.
So I went to a barbecue soon after that round of golf, and Tony said he'd give me her number, so when she got to LA, we could, meet. And they were planning a barbecue, so it'd be no pressure or stress or anything else. It was all these things. And so I meet Jimmy, and I go, "Hey, Jimmy, what's up?" And he goes, "Hey, my cousin was supposed to come tonight, made other plans." I said, "Who's your cousin?" He said, "Tracy."
The one and only.
Right? So the reason, sort of all those things, all that sort of foundation means something.
Right.
Is because after Tracy had met me backstage, she and her cousin Gina were driving back I think they were going to Jackson from Memphis and spending the night. And she mentioned to her cousin that she met me backstage. And she said, what's he like? And she said, that's the type of man I see myself marrying someday.
Dude, Tracy's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, my heart jumped a little bit, which was unusual because it didn't really do that.
Right.
And then she just saw me as this guy that she thought would be really cool to spend her life with. And that was a chance meeting that we'd never see each other again.
Right.
Just that. And so now her Jimmy is her cousin who I'd known for 3 years.
Right.
Why didn't you introduce me? Right. It's all these questions. Yeah. But it was just sort of, if I would have met her 3 months before, it might have been one of those things where it's, it's like out of sync, out of reality, right?
Yeah, the timing was perfect.
It was perfect. But when we started dating, we laughed constantly. We'd find an excuse or reason to be together like every day. I'd meet her at work for coffee, or she'd get off work and meet me in the, halfway, because I was out a bit in Thousand Oaks and she was over in the Westwood area, and we'd meet and go to a movie together or something, and we'd do all that. And then after a few months came the conversation, right? It was funny. My closest friend out there, we were watching, sports on TV, and he goes, "You gonna marry this girl?" And
how long was it going at this point?
It was a few months.
Few months.
And I go, "I don't know." And he goes, "Have you looked in the mirror lately?" The friends.
That's a good friend.
That's a good friend. Guys have to have friends like that.
Yeah. So, you need them.
Yeah. So she came, and I could tell she was unsettled. And I said, "What's up?" And she said, "I have to ask you something, a very important question." And I go, "Sure, anything. Yeah, you can ask me anything." And she goes, "Where are you in your relationship with Jesus?" And at the time, I had really strong and untethered beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. I believed in God, and I prayed to him all the time. I just didn't. This Jesus guy was really fascinating to me, because it seemed like he was a really cool guy, and that he did some really profound things. I just didn't. And for me to be in athletics and sports, there were always rules to the game.
Yeah.
Like, there were always kind of like, here's how you can be successful.
Right.
And
there's a formula.
There's a formula.
Yeah.
And this didn't seem like it was so formulaic. It felt kind of like it was sort of out there. And so she said, "Where are you in your relationship?" And I as I remember at the time, I just said what any smart guy would say, like, "Where do you want me to be?
Tell me where I should be."
Yeah. And we'll
I will
okay.
do that. Yeah, I'll do that thing.
And so I just told her, I said, "Look, I don't have this kind of profound sense of fairness and, of all these things." And I just said, "I don't understand." And this is what's kept me away from the church for all these years, is who's right. You have all these denominations, you have all these factions, you have all these people that say, "I'm right, you're wrong."
It's a great question.
And it's all the same book, and it's all the same guy. And it's like, to me, I just felt like at the time, and I don't, I'm not here to offend or anything else. It just felt like it's okay. No, it's like you're putting God in a little golden cage,
right?
And you're asking him to perform to your standards. And it's like, that offends me. Yeah. And I didn't know why, because I wasn't really practicing my faith. So do I even have the right to say that?
Did you grow up around the church?
We started going to like Sunday school and things like that. But I went to, when I started training away from home, this is where it really got real. I went to this place in Illinois called the Wagon Wheel. And there was a skater there who was the most popular woman athlete in the world at the time. Her name was Janet Lynn.
Okay.
And she, she came in fourth at Worlds one time.
Okay.
But her spirit on the ice was so strong and so attractive, and and she loved Jesus, and she was a very evangelistic in her sort of her skating life. She would try to like bring everybody she could to Jesus.
Right.
She was amazing, and she was like, just to be around her, she had this attractiveness about her that just, everybody wanted to be like Janet. Yeah. So everybody had their Bibles, and everybody would go to her church, and everybody did this thing. And since the Wagon Wheel was a lodge, it was a hotel, and the basement of this lodge was the dorms where all the skaters lived. In the bedside table was a Bible.
Yeah.
And so I go, wow, I want to fit in here, so I want to read the Bible. And I picked it up, and the font was so small that I was like, this is a climb. This is going to be a while. But I was still so much in the world. I was just sort of trying to figure out who I was, this 14-year-old kid sharing a dorm room with 18, 21-year-old guys, and growing up too fast. And it was just all the stuff. And it was just like, I don't understand. But I think there's definitely something there, because I feel it in my being. There's something there. And so I remember, and I haven't really told this story to anybody but my close circle, but I was feeling kind of isolated, just sort of like at odds. And I went out for a walk. As part of this resort, they had like a small golf course and they had these horse stables and they would do these rides. And so the rides would go through these horse trails and we'd always walk the horse trails. And there was this big rock that was kind of at the convergence of some of the trails. And I just climbed up on the rock. And I just remember just repeating time and time again, I just so wanted to be in relationship. I just kept, and I don't know, it was so, it was so innocent in its time. And it was on my heart. I repeated probably for an hour, unite, be as one, unite, be as one, unite,
and this
be
is
as one.
14 years old.
Yeah. Unite, be as one, unite, be as one. I just said, unite, be as one, unite, be as one. I just kept saying it because I was just, something in me just so desperately wanted to be in a relationship, but I didn't know how to do it.
It's so, I love that. Because obviously, you'd been around the church a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Sunday school. Mm. But this thing is inside of you that's desiring relationship.
And and again, being an adopted kid with all those kind of
gosh, we got to get into this stuff.
Yeah. So I love my parents, and they were so sacrificial, and they were amazing, and they were loving, and I had cousins and sister and a brother, and we were just living life as a normal family. Yeah. But there's as much as I loved and as much as I felt I had a huge reservoir for love, there's always going to be this a little bit of even if it's a centimeter separation. Yeah. That doesn't exist with birth children. I don't know what that is, but there's this little bit of separation where I always felt like I was in a family, but I was kind of on my own. Yeah. Like I was
a little bit on the outside.
I was tethered, but not totally tethered, right?
Listen, we got to do something. Everybody, hey, this is Scott Hamilton.
Hi. Sorry, we got to do this fast.
Which is fine.
I have a habit of doing that.
I do it all the time. Mm-hmm. I could care less. There is no rhyme or reason what we're doing. But for those, I'm sure that a chunk of people watching this know who you are. But we also have people that might not, right? Yeah. Especially, I think the younger generation has no idea.
Well, YouTube takes care of a lot of that.
I grew up watching you on TV. Wow. I grew up listening to you. Yeah. I was born in 82. So I think you got your first gold medal?
Well, the only gold medal
in 83?
84.
84. I was so close.
So I was sort of the last place guy for a lot of years. I skated and I had a childhood illness, and it kind of got me through my childhood illness. Nobody knows why. Yeah. But I started skating, and I call it sort of my whole thing was est. I was the shortest. I was the littlest. I was the sickest. I was all the est in my class. And I was always kind of the last one chosen, for any kind of sports games, because I was always kind of the smallest, weakest, And so I went through this childhood illness, and then to give my parents a morning off, I started skating. Okay. They had a brand new rink at the university where my dad was a professor, and they teach kids how to skate from 8 to noon. Yeah. And so I started doing that, and I realized after a few weeks that I could skate as well kids. Yeah. And then after a few more weeks, I could skate as well as best athletes in my grade. And it was like first taste of self-esteem. It was like, wait a minute, I could actually do something as well as other people. Like now I have identity, right?
What did that look like? What was that thing? Because I have 3 kids, and as a parent, you're like, I wonder what my kid's gonna excel at, or like what did that look like in your life?
It was sort of like my parents were all in academia, right? Everybody was school teachers, right? My dad was a PhD professor of biology, all earth sciences. Actually, he was very much an expert at all earth science, right? Whether it doesn't matter. Biology, botany, ecology, geology, all the ologies, right? He was big into all that. And my mom was teaching second grade. She was very much in education. She was very nurturing. My dad was very structured. He was ROTC, lieutenant in the Army, taught, did the tank corps thing.
And raised you that way.
Yeah, well, he was a pretty structured guy. And he was kind of scary until he quit smoking, and then he put on some weight, and he was really bigger, and he was an awesome guy. But awesome. My mom was always, she was always sacrificial. She would never do anything for herself. It all went to her kids, and she was loving, and I was always on her lap, and I worshiped and adored my mother. And so, being sort of the adopted kid, with sort of a birth child, there's expectation. You're carrying my genetics, and you're carrying a piece of my identity.
Right.
And so if we're interested in academia, you're probably going to be interested in academia too, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same with athletes. You see these athletes, start their families and their kids are all in sports, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of that sort of, my identity is your identity. Well, when you're sort of an adopted kid and you're sort of different, you're sort of doing your own thing, it's like, well, we'll just see what happens, And so I was kind of like, let's just see what sticks. And so when I got on the ice and I started skating and I started like showing signs that I was proficient and it was natural, that it just very, very natural.
What were those signs?
That I picked things up very quickly, that my personality was such that I really wanted to, like in skating is basically a sport of showing off. Look what I can do, right? Look what I can do. Look, I not only look what I can do, but I can do this better than all the other guys, right? So that's kind of the nature of the sport, is who can show off the best wins, right? And I had that personality where I wanted to be the center of attention. I was always trying to do like impersonations and tell jokes and do all. I just loved
like class clown stuff too. Yeah, or
a little
no?
bit, not so. Because I was always the ist, right? When I was in a school environment, I was always trying to be invisible. I had friends in my neighborhood and they were great, and we had this big posse of kids that we'd ride our bikes and we'd play football in the front yard. We'd do all those things, and that was great. Growing up in that environment was idyllic, but I was always kind of like never going to be like on the school basketball team or the school football team, or maybe I could run track because I'd be the last guy to quit, because I wasn't faster than anybody. I would just try to outlast them, right? But skating, individual sport, and it just sort of, I love the idea of just being, getting out there and just doing stuff and showing off. And so my first competition, there was 4 guys. They had to create an event for us because we were before you could qualify for competitive skating. So we were in the sub-preliminary or sub-juvenile men, like sub being before the before, right? And there were 4 of us, and I came in second. And it's so funny that the guy that came in first is now president of U.S. Figure Skating, and he's on the board. He's on the board of my cancer foundation. Yeah. So we remained friends all this years.
Random kids.
Just kids that show up to skate at a rink with the right coaches.
Do you think that he excelled because you excelled?
No, he was just better than me at the time, right? And then he got into school and all the other things. I went all into skating. He got into the rest of the world. He's a consultant. He's in a big, business accounting firm. He retired. Now he's president of U.S. Figure Skating for the second time. And so he's just his thing was academia.
Right.
And skating was a great vehicle for him, and it's a phenomenal, like, people forget the whole purpose of sports. Like they think it's big business. They think it's this. It's not. Sports are 100% physical and character development.
So I never played sports.
Yeah.
Like a single one.
Yeah, but you turned out okay.
Well, I think that's up for debate. And there's team on the other side of these cameras that could probably tell you otherwise. I never played sports. My parents were artists. So I grew up like going to museums. Yeah. Right? That was fun as a family. Yeah. I didn't enjoy it at the time. Yeah. And now I look back and I'm like, I'm so grateful that I did other things than just get hauled off to practice every weekend. Like when we do that now with our kids, soccer, like it's the last place I want to be.
Yeah. But how, now I have a question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
So what I've learned just through sports is I learned how to process failure. I learned how to set specific physical goals. Yeah. I learned how to get up after a fall. I learned how to kind of win with dignity, and hopefully the same dignity that I learned how to lose. Where do you build those muscles when you're in the world of art? Because it's purely creative and it's really a whole different world.
Well, it's funny because what you said was, at least earlier on, right? Like I lost the creativity, right? I lost the, you'd have to come up with a new set, a new thing every time. For me, and watching my parents, every piece of art or everything that they built. My dad was a sculptor. My mom was a painter. It wasn't a gold medal, right? It was, some were great, some were not so great. So how do you keep honing?
I
and
see.
you get it. You
That's
get it
its own muscle,
in the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
I think similar.
Oh yeah.
But
I had 9 judges. You had.
You're getting judged constantly.
Yeah.
Now, I never went heavy into art. I did music. I did some photography for fun in high school. But for me, I was just drugs. Drugs was like, I could care less about anything else except drugs. Yeah. But Eric, do you know Eric Johnson?
What drew you to drugs? Just escape?
Oh man, they're fun.
Euphoria and all the other stuff.
They were fun.
Yeah.
It was something to do.
Yeah.
And I just personally have a tendency to self-medicate, whether it's caffeine or I just, whatever it is, I go all in. So I actually have that thing that goes all in with preaching. I'm all in.
Got it.
Like if I'm going to do missions, I'm going to go everywhere.
And
right.
you're able to take in the feedback that you receive, and that is your success or failure.
Yes.
And that's how you grow.
100%. I wish I could say like it's just the Lord. No, but I struggle through success and failure just like anyone else.
Oh,
Eric Johnson. Do you know who Eric Johnson is?
Yeah.
I had this moment with Eric Johnson, Pastor Eric Johnson. This is when he was still out in Reading. We were in Maine doing an event. Me, Eric, a couple other people. And Eric was preaching that night. It was the first time I had heard him do like a full service. And he was sharing about Steph Curry. Do you know who Steph Curry is? I'm sure 99.99.
More threes than anybody in the history of the sport. I mean, the guy is just, his shooting ability is just incredible, and his golf swing is obscene.
Okay, so I have no idea who Steph Curry is. This is just a few years ago.
Great athlete, yeah.
I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. I have no idea who he is because I don't watch sports. I don't. There's one sport I watch. It's UFC.
Yeah.
But so he uses Steph as this analogy. And he's like, just so I know, he's up in northern Maine somewhere, in the middle of nowhere. There's a lady with a coonskin hat in the back. He's like, do you guys know who Steph Curry is? If you don't, raise your hand. So like I raise my hand and I'm sitting on the front row and there's like some woman, that might be 95 in the back that raises her hand. And so Eric looks at me and, we're at the early part of our friendship, right? So he looks at me and he's like, whatever. Service goes on. That night, we're walking through the woods to go to a bonfire. And he looks at me and he goes, hey, like, you were joking, right?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I have no idea. After you mentioned it, yes, if some pieces click together. But I really have no idea who that is. And he looked at me like I was some caged freak, in a circus sideshow. And he made a statement that changed my life forever. He goes, well, what sports do you like? And I was like, I like 2 men go into a cage, 1 comes out, right? Yeah. I love watching the Olympics, right? There's 3 people on a podium, right?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he goes, that must speak to how you lead. You probably don't work well with teams. It's about you.
Wow.
And for the first time, I started like reading and studying what it is to build team, look at a team. So that is one thing when you are the individual.
Individual. And it's funny too, because as for all those years, I was last place guy because I would fail miserably because I was distracted. I liked to perform, but I didn't really, the competition thing wasn't really, I was really good regionally. Sectionally, I was average. Nationally, I was a disaster.
At how old?
By the time I made it to nationals, I was 14.
Okay. So this is all that time where you're starting to ask God.
You're building, yeah.
Yep.
And so, like, first nationals, I fell 5 times in a 3-minute program, came in dead last, right? Humiliating, because that was Janet Lynn's last nationals, and they put my little event before the ladies' event, and they were standing room only because that was her last one.
Wow.
So I'd never seen that many people in my life, and I choked. And next year I went back to nationals, and there were 10 of us because I got a free pass to nationals. I'm not sure. I think because I won sectionals the year before or something. But anyway, I only fell twice that year and came in 9th out of 10. So I'm kind of the guy at the bottom. And then my mom said, you have to make it. I was going up to the junior level because what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Last.
Right.
Right. So I'm going up to juniors, and my mom said, you have to make it to nationals this year. And I said, why? And she said, because they're in Oakland, California, and I've always wanted to go to San Francisco and ride the cable car. She wanted a family vacation, right? It's like, okay, I'll do my best. So I made it to nationals that year. And I'd just gotten a new jump that I put in the program, and so I beat 2 guys. And
Can I ask what the jump was?
A double axle. It was a 2.5 revolution jump. You take off forward, land backwards, so it's 2.5 revolutions. But it took me a long time to get it, but once I got it, it was a good one, right? Because build your foundation strong and whatever.
Were you one of the first to do that? No.
Never. I was never any of the first to do anything.
You were the first though to do a backflip.
First backflip was done in the 1940s by a guy named Skippy Baxter.
You were the first to do it in competition.
I never did it in competition except the pro competitions. A lot of people give me way more credit than I deserve. I think it was because there was so many eyes on me back then, because I'd gone 4 years undefeated, and then I won the Olympic gold medal, and then I turned pro, and I really wanted to be an entertainer. The first ice show I ever saw, the only thing I remember was a guy named Freddie Trenkler, who was the comedian, and I thought, if I could be an ice show comedian, that's the best gig ever on the planet Earth, just to be an ice show comedian. And so that was I wanted to be an ice show comedian. Yeah. And so when I signed with the Icecapades, all those years later, it was one of those things where the president of Icecapades said, you're just like all the other Olympians. You think your work is done, blah, blah, blah. He was just trying to, I don't know what it was, but he basically held his nose while signing my contract, And I said, no, I'm going to be the best employee you've ever had. And he goes, I doubt that highly. And so I never missed a show. I never missed a press obligation. I even took over weeks, for athletes that got injured, and I'd step in for them. And so I had a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option, and he was at my last show of my 2 years. And it's like, here comes my option. It's like, I got through the gauntlet. I skated hurt and I didn't care. I just got through it. And I skated at the top of my game. The hardest jumps I ever did in competition, I'd do every night in the show. And I took it seriously as an opportunity. And at the end of the show that night, he met me backstage, and he goes, you did exactly what you said you were going to do. Congratulations. I'm just so proud of you. And I'm just so, and then he put his arm around me and he started to walk. And I joke about this when I do my speeches. It's like, has anyone ever put their arm over your shoulder and started to walk and it was good? like ever, like ever.
Not that I know of.
Right.
Yeah.
So he just said,
"You're fired." Yeah.
No, he said basically, we've gone through a sale, and I go, I can't wait to meet the new owner. And he goes, well, he doesn't want to meet you. And it's like, is there something I did? And he goes, he only wants female stars. He doesn't want any male skaters in his shows. And I go, so I was let go. No 3rd-year option. And so we started a show called Stars and Ice. But it was in all of that I learned that I'm part of a machine. I'm part of a big, I'm an individual, but I play a role in a much larger ecosystem. Right.
Do you ever feel used?
No, I felt like I was given opportunity. Mm-hmm. Like I never felt like I deserved anything. I just felt like, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity. Do the best you can, do the best you can, do the best you can. And so, watching, kind of my parents' sacrifices and all the other things, it was just one of those things where I saw it as a real opportunity I need to learn. Yeah. So when I was in Icecapades, I learned about production, I learned about music, I learned about lighting, I learned about set design, I learned about what audiences respond to and what they don't. That's why I learned a backflip, because I saw other guys doing it. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that really gets a crowd going. I get me one of those. And so I learned it, and it was like the first one I landed, the reaction was so gigantic. It's like, I am never leaving the house without this bad boy ever. And so backflip became part of my identity in a way. And then, so when Icecapades went away and I was given an opportunity to build a tour with International Management Group, IMG, I just thought, wow, this is another opportunity. And so I took all the relationships that I'd made in the Icecapades, and I took all of what I'd learned, and I built sort of this concept for a show. And we did 5 cities in the Northeast. They're all college rinks. The first one we actually set on fire, but it wasn't our fault. We put 100 amp the building put a 100 amp wire from the transformer directly to a 300 amp beam. And it was in a hole in the wall that the wire went out. And so when we hit our finale and we turned on all the lights on, the wire exploded. Yeah. Some ladies, I think it was a wig caught on fire. And then I was like, ma'am, your hair's on fire. You know, and then, and then the spotlight, little scaffold kind of started on fire and he put it out. But so that was our first show ever. And then we did 4 more on that run, and the response was really good. And so IMG got excited. And so they found a corporate sponsor. They brought in Dorothy Hamill, and we launched the Stars on Ice tour the next year. And we did 30 cities, and we did that every year for 6 years as this opportunity to kind of build something.
Wow.
And then I was doing my first Olympics as a broadcaster, and Christy Yamaguchi wins the gold medal, and she's being interviewed, and they go, "What's next for you?" And she goes, "I'm going to join Stars on Ice." And I was like, "Oh my!"
That wasn't
goodness.
Staged.
No, she just decided that's what she didn't want to go the traditional kind of ice show route. She wanted to go Stars on Ice, and so she brought with her like all this newfound popularity of a woman Olympic gold medalist.
Right.
And she brought in a choreographer, Sandra Bezic, who had big production, experience. And then we had all this, now we're 60 cities, another 12 in Canada, and now we're 72 cities. And now we're going to be something different and bigger. Right. And so from there on, audiences just kept growing, and and more people came on board. Katarina Witt and Torbjörn Dean and all these people that were just icons of the sport. Gordy Van Grinkhoff came to us when they were children. They came to us, and we have all these the best skaters in the world are with us. Brian Orser and then Kurt Browning and Paul Wiley and Rosalind Sumners, and I mean it was just an all-star cast, and it was just like a perfect storm where people would fill the arenas. I remember stepping on the ice in St. Louis, and there were 19,600 people in the audience.
My goodness!
And I was terrified.
On an ice rink? What ice rink has that many seats?
It's their hockey rink. It's their NHL.
Okay, yeah.
It's like Bridgestone Arena is here, right?
Yep.
We were selling out everywhere, and it was like, how? Why? And then it was year 11 of that I was diagnosed with cancer, and then changed everything. And then when I came back, the audience was invested in a different way, because I think, you're drawn to things for different reasons, right? And they always loved the beauty and the excellence and the, sort of the excitement of the tour and everything else. And we were really very conscious of our audience and what we could bring to them and do something new and different and innovative and brand new and shiny. But when Katya's husband Sergey died, I was talking to him 5 minutes before, and he spoke English a little bit, and I didn't speak any Russian, but we'd always joke back and forth. And he was big and I was small, and we just had this great relationship. And I always considered Stars on Ice my family, and I looked after them like family. I led like family. The crew was family. We're all family, and I was gonna do everything I could to protect them and honor them, and to come every year with my A game, and to be able to kind of make sure that we were all good. We were all good, and I just felt the responsibility of that. And when Sergey went down, it was like, how does this happen? And what I saw from that was that all of a sudden there was a different response from our audience, and that was a compassion.
Wow.
Not just wanting to be in a room with these great skaters, but wanting to share in a life event that was truly remarkably tragic.
Yeah. Can I ask how he passed?
He heart failure at 28 years old.
Wow.
His father, I think, also had heart failure as in his 50s. But I was talking to him 5 minutes before, and he goes, I have to go next door for choreography, and they were warming up, and he goes, I feel dizzy, and he laid down, and he died. And Katya, his wife, and they had a 3-year-old daughter, Daria, who I just loved, and to this day I adore her. I just love her so much. And Katya, I just felt this paternal instincts of, let's circle the wagons and let's look after her. And how do you even how do you even negotiate that in your mind, that a 28-year-old superstar that just won an Olympic gold medal, like 2 years before, his second gold medal in the Olympics at 28 years old is going to die of heart failure, an old man's disease. It's like, how does that even happen?
It's crazy.
And so I remember when he was laying on the ice, I saw him and people were surrounding him. I just went into a locker room. I said, God, don't do this. Don't. It's like, please, Lord, don't do this. It's like, what can come of this?
Yeah.
What good can come of this? What good could ever come of this? And so a few of us went to the funeral in Moscow, and that was a whole other experience. And then Katya came back to us as a solo performer. And it was the bravest thing I think I've ever seen. And so, it was, as most tragedies are, they can be divisive or they can bring people together, right?
Just timeline me. So how old were you when this took place?
That was in 96.
So you were married?
So 37. No.
No?
I was, 96. So
this is before your faith really began to.
But I always believed,
grow.
I just didn't know what the rules of the game were, right?
Right.
So I was really, and so it was really, that was the first sort of like get real moment, right? I go, well, Lord, I don't know what this is. But when I saw people come back to the show with a different emotion, it wasn't about just seeing something spectacular. It was about sharing in Katya's grief, and it was a human thing. And it was just so, all of it was so, like, it was a computer virus to me, because I just said, I know this isn't, something's wrong here. Something, my whole ecosystem view of the world was totally shaken.
Right.
And then it's the next year that I'm diagnosed with cancer on tour. And in all of those lessons of compassion that I learned from Sergei's death, I realized that I needed to step into my next chapter with an understanding that I'm looking after now another group of people, and those are people that are living with cancer.
Yeah.
And so my whole swing thought, all of it, my whole year that year was, I am going to be the best patient they've ever had because I'm going to be back on the ice next year at the beginning of the tour. And so I had 4 months of chemotherapy, of which I lost every hair on my body. I was bloated. I couldn't even touch my toes. It was awful. I got sick within the sickness with another whole virus thing. And
that's how we first, that's actually, it was cancer through my wife's second cancer journey that we actually heard you were in town.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because someone was like, hey, if she needs it, Scott Hamilton has this radiation that's like groundbreaking.
Oh, yeah, proton therapy.
Yeah. That's actually how I found out you were here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I knew that I had an opportunity, and so I was diagnosed March 16th, 97. And then on October 29th, I did a comeback show, of which we raised enough money where I could start the seed money for a initiative at the Cleveland Clinic that was going to help with cancer. Just because I was a fundraiser after I lost my mom to cancer.
Yeah.
And then 20 years later, I became more of an activist, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't choose it; it chose me, and I'm doing the best I can, But so I remember I skated my performance, and at the end, I just felt this weight that there were people with cancer right now that were just like saw that I went through all of that, 38 staple surgery, and I'm back on the ice.
Wow.
And I knew that I could set sort of an example of resilience in that moment. And all I could think to say when they handed me the microphone for a few words was, I win. I win. Like, I win.
Wow.
And I go, for everybody that is sitting in an infusion room right now, your battle is meant to be won. Wage it,
Yeah.
And so since then, excuse me, I've been, growing, the CARES Cancer Alliance for Research, Education, and Survivorship. We've been building, just sort of mentorship program called the Fourth Angel, which is at the Cleveland Clinic, where they pair newly diagnosed patients with survivors, because that's the way you get through life is in relationship.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
People that have gone through it, that pioneer,
Yeah.
it's it's life changing.
Yeah.
Because you get hit with it and you're the first. Like,
Right.
you're like, I've never faced anything like this before. The doctors, the calls, the appointments, the tests.
How do I do this?
It's insane.
We put you with somebody that's on the other side of it now.
Wow.
So they work as a sort of a role model and a life coach. And
Amazing.
just when you're at your lowest, you go, well, you were here.
Yeah.
You know, how bad am I, right?
Yeah.
And so we built that, and then we built a website because I went on Dr. Google like most people do, and all I could find was medical journal papers with 12-syllable words, and it's like, it's not fair that I'm too dumb to be sick. And so we created a website called chemocare.com, which is everything you need to know about chemotherapy in 8th grade English and Spanish, every drug, every side effect, everything about it. And so now people don't have to take every step in the dark. They're not wearing out their oncologists saying, what.
Yeah.
Now they have, they have a mentor, and now they have a resource. And then
is this free, the mentorship?
The mentorship, yeah. You just go to Cleveland Clinic Taussig Cancer Center, and the Fourth Angel Mentoring Program is right there. And it doesn't matter if you're a patient at the Taussig Cancer Center or not. You can get paired with a survivor.
No way.
Yeah. So
what an incredible idea.
Well, I mean, it's I always had coaching, but not in cancer.
Right.
I had empathy.
Right.
But I didn't have coaching. So I wanted to quit after round 3. Quit.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And there's another whole story attached to that, right? Where now I've got this foundation and we're raising money for cancer research. And this guy, I want to raise money for your foundation. Oh, sure. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I just had my first resection of glioblastoma multiform brain cancer. And I've always had a dream as a child of riding the length of the Natchez Trace on a bicycle. I want to do that to raise money for your cancer foundation. It's 444 miles with brain cancer.
Wow.
Scott Williams comes to us, right? And so we have our guy, Johnny Burrell, who's our cyclist, kind of fundraiser expert guy. And he's a freak on a bike. And he just went through back surgery and been off his bike for a while. And they said, Johnny, is this even a thing? Can this guy do the 444 miles? This is what I love about people. Johnny said, he'll never make it without me. So Johnny got on his bike and his trainer, and he started getting his back moving again. And he took 2.5 weeks off of his business, and he made sure that Scott Williams, from the southern terminus of the Natchez Trace to the Loveless Cafe, got his 444 miles, and it took him 9 days.
Wow.
They got hit with tornadoes, food poisoning, sickness, it's brain cancer. I mean, it's just hard, right? Balance, everything else is off. And I rode the last 4 miles in with them on a bike, and I'm like, I've never been so inspired to see the bravery and the determination of a guy with basically a death sentence, doing something with his life that is remarkable and spectacular. And I want to do this. And I said, I'm doing this next year. I'm not a cyclist. Wow. So the next year, show up at the southern terminus with Johnny Burrell as my guide, and it's just he and I, and we're going to do it in 5 days. So I'm all about 8s. I was born 8/28/58, and every time I see an 8, I know that God's in it somehow, somewhere, in some way. So I go, okay, so we have to average how many miles a day in order to get this done in 5 days? Well, it's 88.8 miles.
There you go.
So after the second day, I couldn't even walk. I couldn't walk. And I told Johnny, I go, I'm not a cyclist. I can't even lift my legs. I don't know how I'm going to do this again. And he said, do you trust me? And I said, yes. He goes, tomorrow at some point, you're going to ask me to go 100 miles. And I go, really? Because I think I know my body, and I think that you don't know my body, and I think that this isn't going to happen. So the next day, he got me on the bike, and I could barely get on the bike. And he goes, pedal as fast as you can without resistance for the first mile. So I did, just getting the legs going. He goes, now coast for the next mile. Just going to easy. We're just going to talk and hang out. Okay, third mile, pedal as fast as you can, fast as you can, fast as you can without resistance. Pedal as fast as you can. Okay, next mile, we're just going to coast, just going to go. So the fifth mile, we're as fast as you can without resistance. And it was at the end of that mile that I felt my leg just open up. Like all the blood vessels just opened up.
Is that what it was? Some technique?
A technique of his that he just understands the human body.
Yeah.
And I felt everything just flush out of my legs. And I go, let's go. And I led for the next hour and a half. We averaged 24 miles an hour.
Is this like road, like mountain biking, road cycling?
No, it's a 2-lane road that goes from Natchez, Mississippi to Nashville, Tennessee. And we just started riding. And at 70-mile mark, I turned back to Johnny because he was drafting off me now because I was just on fire. And we would take turns and everything. I go, let's go 100 today. And he goes, I told you.
That's amazing.
So we get to the 100th mile marker. And it's like, I take a picture with it and everything. And it's like, that's great. We get in the van and we're headed to the hotel. And it's like, all I felt in my spirit is like, go back. And I was like, what? Just go back. It's like, go back. I was so confused. Go back. So I pulled out my phone and I went back. I went back. I went back 20 years. 25 years ago that day, I wanted to quit chemo. Because I didn't see me anymore. All I saw was devastation of cancer. I wanted to quit. 25 years ago. And on the 25th anniversary of that day, I'm riding 100 miles on a bicycle.
Come on.
So the next morning, I recorded a video, and I told the story. Yesterday I did 100 miles. Here's the mile marker. I go, if you're in an infusion room right now, and you don't see tomorrow, you don't see next year, you don't see anything, just know there's a mile marker waiting for you. You just got to keep going towards it. And it's just been remarkable just how the Lord has just blessed me with experience after experience after experience. And I don't know what the grand purpose is in any of it. I just know that he's been so much better to me than I've been to him, you know? And I'm hungry just to grow and to learn and to experience and to try to connect the dots. And that's the word, you know? And so when I meet people like you, and I meet people that have dedicated their lives to guiding people and to teaching people and to healing people and to being the hands and feet of Jesus. It's like, I need to spend more time in that presence of not just you physically, but in the spirit of what drives you. And in sharing that with as many people in the secular world as possible. Because skating is a secular sport. It's like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Give me numbers, give me points, give me what I need to get these shiny little objects. And then my life will be, I guess I'll be justified. And it's really funny because now I have to go back again to when I won the gold medal, and I'm standing on the podium and I get asked by people all the time, what does it feel like to win an Olympic gold medal? I said, it's really complicated, because when I was standing on the podium, it was a convergence of every possible emotion, of joy, of guilt, of loss, of confusion, of pride in my country, that you know, and the flag goes up and the anthem is played, and you'll never see the flag or hear the anthem in the same way. No, I'm representing a nation and representing all that stuff. Crazy. But it's also looking like, why couldn't my mom be here to see this? Why did she have to die? Well, if she hadn't have died, I never would have dedicated every single day to her to be at a position where I could. Right. It's a culmination. It's just a collision of emotions. And looking over the edge of the podium, like I'm looking over the edge of a cliff, because who am I now? Right? And so I come back, I train in relative isolation, right? I'm tracing eights by myself in silence for hours and hours a day, every day. I'm running programs to music. It's me driving my way from beginning, middle, and end to make no mistakes, to prepare for this moment. And then I come back to a parade, and somebody sends a private jet to pick me up in Chicago to bring me back to Denver for this parade into this part of town that I used to love to go visit. Now it's just full of people that are celebrating a moment. And it's like, what is happening here? And then I get called into the governor's office I think for a photo op. And he says, my wife was at your parade. And I go, yeah, I enjoyed meeting her. She was nice, a cancer survivor. I go, yeah, really loved meeting her. And he goes, I just felt, it's just he and I in his office. There was no photographers. There's no entourage. He goes, I just wanted to share something with you that's kind of was on my heart when my wife was telling me about you yesterday. I couldn't be at the parade, but she was there to represent. And I go, yeah, I understand. You're a busy man. He goes, no. Have you ever heard of the hometown hero syndrome? And I said, no. What is that? And he said, well, the best example I can think of is the quarterback of the high school football team throws a bomb at the end of the game to win the state championship, and everybody carries him off the field on their shoulders. And he just expects the rest of his life is going to be that moment of, I'm going to, for the rest of my life, it would be carried off the field on everybody's shoulders. And he goes, look, I want you to enjoy the fruits of your labor, but just understand that it's not always going to be a parade. It's not always going to be.
He's telling you this.
Mm-hmm. He goes, I want you to enjoy everything you've earned, but I want you to prepare your heart and your mind that it's not always going to be like this.
Right.
And it was so funny because all of a sudden I saw all these people that got stuck in a moment, and they could never get past it. Yeah. Like anytime I talk to anyone, especially in like a podcast form, the metal's going to come up, right?
Yeah.
But it was in that the next thing I did from that conversation was I went to speak at the Paralympic banquet because all those athletes were coming back from their Olympic experience 2 weeks later. And I saw we're all wearing the same jackets, the same ties, the same Olympic uniform. We all have the same medals around our neck, except they are blind or without legs or with countless challenges that I'm able-bodied.
Yeah.
Who am I to think that what I did was special? I was offended. And so from that moment, from the governor's talk to this Paralympics thing, it was no accident. The Lord was here. I love you enough to give you something that you need to operate on.
Right.
And so my Olympic gold medal lived in a brown paper bag at the bottom of my underwear drawer until I could figure out how to get rid of it. It offended me, and I had no idea why. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I didn't want anything because I was going this way, right? I wanted to go forward. I didn't want to get stuck. And it's like, don't you know who I am? How many times have you heard people say that because of a moment in their time, right? It's like, it's like all that. It's like, no. And so I got inducted into the World Figure Skating Hall of Fame. And my dad was going to come as part of the ceremony, and Mrs. McElroy and my sponsor was going to be there, and my coach was coming. And they go, is there anything you'd like to have at the museum to commemorate your induction? I go, everything. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, can you just please take everything? Everything. And I go, yeah. I go, I don't care what you do with it, but you can have all of it. Just take it all.
When you're saying everything, you're saying...
From my second place medal from my sub-juvenile men to my fourth world championship.
You can have it all.
Take it.
And did they?
They took it all.
So you don't have any of this stuff?
Nothing. And I'm not saying that I have anything more than what I learned was...
You don't have your medal?
Nothing.
You physically, if I said, hey, Scott, bring your medal in to show everybody.
I'd say, you have to fly to Colorado Springs to get it because that's where it is.
Okay.
I know it offends me, and I didn't understand why. The day I was baptized, I just gone through brain surgery and all these other things, right? I decided that enough is enough. I have to die to self. I have to die, whatever it was, it has to go away, and I have to. So Tracy and I were married. We had our son Aiden. He was a baby. It was raining. We're in the faculty hot tub at Pepperdine. We went to church there, right? Ken Durham is baptizing me. He goes, "Are you ready for this? Because I'd really love to." I go, "No, I'm ready. I need to do this now."
Yeah.
And so, we went through baptism, stuff, and the whole church was there. It was raining. It was cold. And we were in the hot tub, so we were the most comfortable people in the whole place, right? So I went under the water and I came out. And I was like, And it wasn't like lightning struck or anything. It was just like there's something different.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I know I professed my belief in my understanding and my role in Jesus is,
Yep.
I now understand that I was responsible for his death. Okay. Take that on. And then it was like, what is it? And so Tracy's taken Aiden and her best friend Carrie. They're going to go out to brunch on Sunday. I'm going back to the house to watch football. And she just looked at me and she goes, how do you feel? And it came to me all at once. Lighter.
Yeah.
Lighter.
Yep.
Because all that garbage, all that toxic waste that I was carrying around in a bag over my shoulder all those years that were weighing me down, slowing me down, that was oppressive and just beyond description of the weight of carrying all my sin and all my separation and all the disgusting, horrible, awful things that I did out of just being in the world.
Yeah.
Being in the world, not understanding that God is God, not thoroughly understanding Jesus until you dedicate your life to him. I felt lighter, but then I understood the metal was an idol. And it still is an idol. And that's why I can't be in its proximity.
What would you say to someone that goes, okay, Scott, like I understand what you're saying, but it can't be an idol because it's something that God empowered you to do. Like that metal is a representation of excellence. That metal is a representation of hard work. That metal, all are principles that we're called to live by. Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone that said
it's a milestone? Keep walking. It's a milestone. That's back there. It's a milestone. It's like the milestone I hit 100 miles of. It's a milestone. It's a memory. It's something that's part of my journey, but it isn't my journey. It's a part of it, but it isn't the whole thing.
So this is very rare, Scott. Mm. And you meet a lot of people that have accomplished a lot of amazing things, right? I think in the world that you live in, you meet really accomplished people.
That's ED, accomplished. Yeah.
I just got it. Yeah. So you see a lot of people fail.
Mm-hmm. Of course, failure is part of life. It's an important part of life. It's a necessary part of life.
Mm-hmm. But as I've sat with people that have achieved some incredible goals, they would not say that about their medal. They would say it is a platform. It is they wouldn't say it's like it's a milestone. They would say this is something that I did, and it's launched me to do all these other things.
Well, it's created. Odds are I wouldn't be sitting here if that moment hadn't happened. Right. Okay. Just that. I mean, even though our meeting had nothing to do with any of that.
No.
It's still a part of my story that becomes sort of some familiar type of thing.
Yep.
It's that familiarity that creates interest.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm interested in something, I want to know more. Then you create a pathway to learn or understand more about something that you might be mildly familiar with. It's like if you love a piece of music, you want to know more about the artist, right? It's typical of that, right? But it's something that, again, I've seen so many people get stuck.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, I just feel like for whatever reason I was born and there's a pretty good chance I wouldn't have been, right? Because I was unintended, unwanted. There's no father on my birth certificate.
Gosh.
Right? So, I look at all of that with a level of responsibility and accountability. Like you gave me a chance to be here. Now, what am I doing with it?
Yeah.
And there were seasons of my life where it was absolute, okay, this is separation, this is separation, this is separation, this is separation, this is separation. And every one of those separations cost me in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And it's okay, I get it. I fell down. Now it's my opportunity to get up. It's like, and I joke when I wrote Finish First, which is sort of a book, sort of a guide to winning. Kind of how to create a winning sort of mentality, or sort of a practices towards getting rid of things. And in that, I had to, she goes, the author that helped me write it, she goes, how many times do you think you fell on the ice? And so let me do the math real quick. So how many days a week I skated? How many hours a day? How many times learning this jump? Okay, minimum 41,600
falls.
Yeah, and some of those were in front of millions of people.
Gosh,
but it's like you get up, right? And that's where a lot of people I meet get stuck. Is they're not sure how to get up, right? They just don't know where they can find the footing to get up. And the first thing we teach in skating, I have a little skating academy here that I work with the Nashville Predators, is before you get on the ice, we're going to sit right here. You got your skates on. We're going to teach you how to get up, because you're going to fall down, because you've just strapped knives to your feet on a very slippery, unpredictable surface. Yeah. You're going to fall down. We're going to teach you how to fall, and we're going to teach you how to get up. And I think in so many ways, if it weren't for Christianity, no one would ever know how to fall down and get up, or how to recognize their fall downs,
right? And
how to get up.
Okay, help me with this then.
Yeah.
So honestly, help me with this, because I feel like the church isn't the best at dealing with people that fall down or have a fall.
What is
and
the
get
church?
back up? They shame people. They judge them.
But what is the church?
I would say the church is a body.
Collection of
like-minded, like-hearted people.
Yeah.
Followers of Christ.
Yeah. And in that, I'll go back to denominational religion. To me, faith and religion are separate entities.
Okay.
Right? I do understand the denomination church, because I think that it helps to build mass. It helps to create sort of that neon sign that says, come, come, come. We're here. You're in a body of Christ. You're going to work, But a lot of times, either the mass starts to create its own sort of truth.
Yeah.
And in that, truth can be skewered, right? Or it can be tilted or twisted into something that's now weaponized against,
right?
And I think that there are guardrails. I mean, you look back at they sold the land and they said it was all the money. Sapphira and
Ananias and Sapphira,
right? And they lied,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And in that they were punished, right? So that's New Testament stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's there, but it's also it's a heart posture,
right?
And that's where I think Jesus wants to really convict us, is our hearts. It's like God knew David's heart. He sinned, but he knew his heart.
Yeah.
And all of these things that people kind of use to, and it goes back to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, it's like they used something to elevate themselves as individuals.
Yeah. Right.
And that's where we have to be careful.
Which is what I love about at 14, you saying, God, I just want to know you.
Right.
It's John 15:15. For no longer do I call you servants, but I call you friends. For a servant doesn't know his master's business. He's not looking for servants. He's looking for friends.
Yeah. And I just wanted to understand what that felt like to be with him, to be in unity, to be in identity, to be in whatever. And that moment sort of planted me in a certain way, even though in phenomenal ways I sinned and separated. Phenomenal ways.
Yeah.
Like but the conviction of that now, as I understand the separation, as I understand the, getting into the world, for the world, to the world, to be of the world. And just how scripture just jumps off the page in certain circumstances, because I have a hard time memorizing, but
I do too.
But it's like Jesus said, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace."
Yeah.
In this world you'll have trouble, but I have overcome the world. Right? That one jumped off the page for me. The other one that jumped off the page for me was it was in I think it was I'm trying to remember which book in the Bible it was, but it's Paul, and he said, Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am the worst. Yeah. But for this very reason, I was shown mercy so that in me, the worst of all sinners, Christ Jesus might display his immense patience for those who would believe in him and receive eternal life.
Come on.
Why do I know that? Because he wants me to know that. Because he allowed me to see it, and he allowed it to permeate every cell in my body.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay. I'm the worst of all sinners. Loud and proud, not loud and proud, but I'm saying,
I know what you're saying.
From the rooftops.
Yep.
All right. And it's like, am I proud of that? No. Right. But I'm just saying it's a part of my story.
Right.
And it's like what I tell my kids all the time. It's like the bag that you're carrying, just let it go. Yeah. Get into the water and just let it go. And what is the greatest strength? Right. And Aiden, my son, you haven't met Aiden yet, but he's training to be in the UFC.
He's that. I saw some pictures of him.
He's a freak.
He looks like
and he's very
he knows
very
what he's
dedicated.
doing. Yeah.
And he's scary. Yeah. I don't ground him anymore. But I go, what's the greatest strength? And I had to learn. I wasn't very good in the compulsory figures, so I didn't win competitions. I didn't train my long program, early enough to be have to be second nature by the time I got to competition, so I failed. The greatest strength is a lack of weakness.
Greatest strength is a lack of weakness.
The greatest strength is a lack of weakness, because we're all weak in some way, shape, or even Achilles had a heel, greatest warrior, and but it's finding out where we're weak and getting strong. And to me, the only way you can do that is to be in the Word. Yeah. The only way. Yeah. Because in many respects, you look at a mirror and that's two-dimensional. How do we know where we're weak? How do we know where we can be blindsided? How do we know where we're vulnerable or where we're susceptible to being sucked back into the world where we will be defeated? Because last I checked, you see all these signs in popular culture right now where people are siding with the enemy. They're very bold in their dedication to Satan. Yeah. I almost hate to tell them, Satan hates us. He'll make all the deals in the world, but he's still going to destroy you. Yeah. He'll give you anything you want in this world. He will. Everything you want in this world. Yeah. And then he'll destroy you because he hates your guts. Yeah. He hates us. He hates every one of us. So how do we fend that off? The only way to do that is Jesus.
So when you met your wife, she was a born again believer. You were questioning things, right?
I didn't know.
You didn't know. Yeah. So you guys got married, you got saved, baptized, and then you went on this journey. How was it coming from such a spirit of excellence, right? And then getting involved with the church? What was that shift like, those two worlds coming together?
It's like...
and was it hard that you were well known?
Yeah, it's somewhat. But the thing about being well known is doors open. Yeah.
You don't know if they're God, though.
Yeah, you don't know if they're God. But in this particular way, this pastor, Ken Durham, he was used to seeing Tracy at church, but he wasn't used to seeing her bring somebody to church. And he saw me with her at church. He's like, oh, Tracy brought somebody to church, and he looks familiar. And in that, I think something united in him where he took a special interest in making sure. And he married us. He baptized Aiden. He's been intimately involved in our lives ever since. And not just because I was famous or whatever, but I think he saw in me hunger, or he saw in me that I was lost and hungry for direction. Yeah. And in that, I was a good investment. Yeah. So in that, being well known, as I used to be the guy that I didn't know how to do it because I trained in relative isolation, then I ever prayed, right? Baseball cap, sunglasses all the time, right? And I got to the point where I realized, that's really stupid, because anybody that, if they were to recognize me and they're going to be kind to me, why wouldn't I receive that? Right? That seems kind of stupid that I'm doing something public, and then now I rely on the shows that I do to bring more people to the table.
Right.
Why wouldn't I allow them to touch my heart? Why wouldn't I allow them to, why would I obstruct?
It's crazy because most people, they're looking for that, right? It seems like you're the opposite. It's like you're trying to get away from the praise of man. But then I realized that I had an opportunity and an obligation to
welcome.
Right.
And to just open arms, just like, here.
That's awesome.
Come.
I love that.
Just, and it's remarkable that the people I admire the most are the ones that they welcome people in, and they're accessible, and they're, it's like, I've had the really weird, odd, I don't call them coincidence, I call them God schedule opportunities of, through my really good friend, Sterling Ball. He's the crazy friend that said, "Are you going to marry her?" Have you looked into it lately? He gave one of his kidneys to his youngest son, who had kidney failure. Yeah. And he started a foundation because he thought there are a lot of people out there that need pediatric nephrology research needs to happen, right? So he figured, I'm going to start a golf tournament, and who's the most famous golfer I can have to help me build this thing? It was Bill Murray. And so Bill Murray, right? So Bill Murray, he finds a way to get connected, right?
Yeah.
And Bill takes the call out of, just being, sort of kind. He takes the call and he goes, "So you got a golf tournament? Tell me about your golf tournament." And he goes, "Well," my son had complete kidney failure, and I gave one of my kidneys to my son. And he goes, wait, what? You did what? So Bill, if you know anything about Bill Murray, he's all about family.
I didn't know that.
All about family, his brothers and his sons and his sons and he's one of those guys that just understands that being around other people is kind of fun and kind of cool.
Right. I've heard stories of Bill Murray like showing up in random bars and like
it's urban legend.
Just walking into people's house. It's not though. It's like I saw the documentary on him. Like he actually does this. He just shows up at people's houses.
Yeah. So through this golf tournament, I got to know Bill Murray a little bit. Yeah. And so I'm in California, and I go, I'm going to drive down and visit Sterling. So Sterling has a little place on the beach at Newport, right? Yeah. And he has a friend, Gary Hanser, who I love. He's this giant mountain of a man. So we're sitting on the deck, and we're looking out at the ocean. It's really great. And then a guy walks around the corner, comes to the gate, and sits down. It's Bill Murray. And I go, "Hey, Billy." And he goes, "Hey, what's going on?" He goes, "Nah, just thought I'd stop by." We just had but it's, when I got, I've had this series of brain tumors. One of them, I'm sitting in my office and my phone rings and I don't recognize the number, I answer it, and it's Bill Murray. That's how you live your life. It doesn't matter if you're, if there's demands or if there's this or if that. If you've got time to just be available or accessible to somebody, it's your loss not to act on that. Yeah. All the time. And so I try to learn, and I try to, like, at each moment, just try to, like, what does this moment mean right now? And why is this moment happening right now? And what could this mean to somebody else? Or what could this mean to glorify and honor what's been done for me? Right?
Wow.
And it's like, I come to this house for this celebration of this kid going off to mission. Yeah. Right. And I come to this house and it's like, wow, this is really, I've always wanted to be up here. I've never been here before. And then this guy is, he's part of the prayer thing. And he's like, and he goes, "Hey, I want to show you around." And it's you. And it's like, okay, I'm paying attention to this. And it's like, wow, God is working all the time. Yeah, and your wife had been coming to the Wednesday nights that we've been doing at Larry Randolph's church. Yeah, and it's like, pay attention to this. Yeah. This is important. I don't know why. I benefited greatly from just what I witnessed at the Wednesday nights. I don't know. Okay. It's so crazy, but it's just so free form, and it's just, but it's so rooted in it's rooted in faith, and it's rooted in God's word, and it's rooted in Jesus, and it's rooted in all the gifts that you're sharing your gifts.
Yeah.
And Larry's sharing his gifts, and it's extraordinary.
For those who have no idea what we're talking about, Wednesday nights, we've been doing them. We started July, August. We're in September now. I don't know when this is going to be. Maybe October by the time this one comes out. We've been doing Wednesday nights at Larry Randolph's church in Paytonsville, Tennessee. So right south of Franklin. And 7 o'clock, 6:30 we start. Usually we end around 10:30-ish.
They can go late.
Yeah.
It's cool.
But it's just us. It's just me and Larry sitting. Literally we sit on chairs and talk about something.
So fun.
For a couple hours and then minister.
But it's something that I went to a sermon when I went to church in LA when I was there at Pepperdine. And Ken was away that weekend. And so he asked a law professor to give the sermon. And the law professor goes, I don't know why I'm here. He goes, yeah, I'm not afraid of talking in front of groups because they do that every day.
Right.
It's just like a sermon, really. And he crafted this story of, his wife passed from illness, and so he's raising his daughter, and they have these beautiful things. And he got to one part of the talk where he's transitioning from kind of who they are into what he wanted to talk about. And the basis of it was, there is no such thing as coincidence. It's all God's scheduled opportunity. And every synapse in my brain just fired and connected in ways it's like, that is so true.
Right.
There's no such thing as coincidence.
He's in everything.
In everything.
He is.
And as soon as we start to connect what seem like random dots, nothing's random anymore. It all is part of the fabric, or it's like if you're this close to a mosaic,
right.
It's really hard for you to see what it, but then the further you step away and it's like, oh wow. And now I'm able to not only connect dots better, but I'm really open to more dots.
Yeah.
Like, give me more dots.
If you recognize them, if you recognize these moments, if God is in everything, he works through everything. If you recognize the moments instead of just brushing them off as like, oh, it's just a coincidence. What a crazy coincidence. What a crazy thing. Like, and I believe that these are just teeny moments of faith.
Yeah.
God, what are you going to do in the middle of this?
Yeah.
So often we brush off things as coincidence.
Yeah.
And at the flip side, you can make everything into hyper spiritual. That's not what I'm talking about.
No, but everything means something.
Yeah.
Right. And as soon as you start kind of flicking off the moments of your life, it's like, no, bring that one back. Just let it sit and let it germinate. Let it kind of do its work. And it's remarkable, how relationship builds and how you're more willing to learn.
Yeah.
And you don't pretend to know everything, right?
Right.
And how you realize that this is a great, big, gigantic, complicated world of which God has intimate knowledge of every cell, of every being, of every person, of every grain of sand, of every leaf on every tree, of every blade of grass, of every water molecule. God is intimately involved in all of it.
Yeah.
And it's awe-inspiring. And I was driving home it was a few weeks ago, and there was this thunderhead I was driving towards it the whole time, and it was magnificent. And all I could think of is that's what the Israelis got to see every single day.
Yeah. And
it took my breath away. And it was like, you're in there, God, you're in there. And the fear of the Lord was just so, it was just so powerful. And I was so grateful for it. It was just like, you're here. And I'm so honored. I'm so humbled. And it's just that I get to live and I get to recognize that. And I get to now form my day-to-day, and every action, every opinion is filtered through you. And now I'm able to recognize times of separation. One thing I didn't mention was the day I was diagnosed with cancer, 3 years to the day is when I met Tracy.
Really? To the day?
To the day. We call it best worst day.
I love it.
We've kind of shifted it over to
Best worst day.
to St. Patty's Day, because I think that's sort of a weird holiday anyway.
It is.
It's like, let's all get drunk. No, it's like best worst day.
Wow.
Yeah. And
3 years to the day.
To the day. To the day. And it's remarkable that that's what life does. You'll be at your lowest low, and then you'll be at your highest high, and it's all connected somehow.
You mentioned something. It was, have you been to Israel?
I have. I didn't want to leave. We were there when they shut it down for COVID.
Okay. So I was with the Alonzos,
Yeah.
which is how we connected. It was Colby that was getting sent off on the mission. And I sent him to Brazil. Did you know that he went to Brazil?
Well, my son was one of his.
Oh, yes.
My at the time 15-year-old son.
Can you share the story?
Yeah. So Max was he tried to be a prodigal. I thought he was going to come with me today, but he's busy. He's an entrepreneur.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Max went through a period of rebellion, and then he got struck hard by the Holy Spirit, and he just like went all in.
Yeah.
And he has a very intimate understanding of the Bible and of Scripture, and he's just at his age, 16, he's remarkable, and he's preaching, and he's starting Bible studies, and he's baptizing kids his age, and he's doing all these things. I'm really proud of him, but I mean, he's a miracle anyway because of a lot of other stories. But anyway, so Max, where was I? I got lost. I did a little bit of a. So you're saying, for Colby,
the finance.
Yeah. So Max is 15.
I just love this.
Yeah.
This is really beautiful. I think it speaks to what you've cultivated in your life, especially in the lives of your
It's
of your
so
kids.
cool. So Max is going to, he's going to Fireplace. He's doing all this stuff with Daniel McLeod and the McLeod
Local
Church.
Franklin, Tennessee gathering stuff. Yep.
Yeah. So they have all this stuff where they activate youth.
Yeah.
And so Colby is now announcing he's fundraising to go to Brazil for this. Was it Brazil or Colombia?
It was Brazil. He sat up here. I met him. He showed up at like my house with Brian from Korn. Colby was there.
I love Brian.
Jessica Tate. Like, I don't know how he got there, but he ended up at my house
Yeah.
at some like little crawfish boil we were doing.
Yeah.
And he asked questions. I was like, come meet me tomorrow. So we sat upstairs and I felt led to send him. I was like, come, we're going to Brazil in a week. Come with me.
Yeah. So he had to fundraise to raise enough money to go. And Max met him and he goes, Dad, I have to confess that I just felt overwhelmed to give him half of everything I have. And I said, okay. And he goes, no, it's a lot of, I set up little bank accounts for them. And he goes, I gave him half. And I go, well, I mean, if that's what the Lord told you to do, it's good. And I go, and you'll get repaid for that, like in abundance, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, it doesn't matter. I just felt really good about it. It made me feel really good to support Colby and his mission to go. And I said, great. And then all of a sudden, he starts he wants to, building media, and he's doing little podcast things, and he's editing videos for people. Like, it's really crazy it's really crazy what
You
he's
shared
doing.
off camera some stuff that's just exciting.
It's so bizarre for a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah. It's incredible.
No, it's
legitimately.
It doesn't make sense.
It's legitimately. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot to impress me.
Well, and it's so cool that he goes, Dad, you're not gonna believe this, but somebody just walked up to me and said, hey, I've got all this extra computing equipment. Do you want it? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, I don't have any use for it. And I'd rather give it to you than, try to get nothing for it. And he goes, Dad, it's worth like 5 times what I gave Colby. Wow. And I go, there's more. There's more. Wait. And he does that. He operates in faith now. And he's really, I see him just sort of really just sort of settling in. And I saw sort of this kind of cushy foundation, that he really wants to be in relationship with Jesus, and he really wants to understand. And now I see that foundation, that cushy foundation is now getting to be where he's building stuff on it that's really cool. And he's changed our family.
Wow.
The youngest has changed our family it's remarkable how our discussions around the dinner table are different than they've ever been. And he's guiding us in ways and places and exploring things, because when you get older, you kind of like funnel everything into something that's controllable. But he's kind of turned the funnel upside down, and now we're starting to branch out and to do more things and experience more things, and we're open to more things, and we're building relationships in new ways and new places, and it's just been such a gift.
Come on.
But that's it. I mean, that's kind of the body of Christ.
Yeah.
It's meant to grow.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable that when you do things like this, that if it touches somebody in a specific way, and now it just grows.
Yeah.
And where's your fruit?
Well, you have grown not just in the figure skating world and Stars on Ice. You've also adopted. And that's something I didn't know about you.
Yeah. We fell in love with these two kids from Haiti, and
I got to meet one of them last Wednesday or the
Jean
Wednesday
Paul,
before. Yeah, Jean Paul.
Yeah, his story has been remarkable. I mean, just the PTSD. We brought him home when he was 13, but what he experienced in Haiti before that was just so tragic that he just carried that, and it erupted in his adolescence, and he's been rebuilding his life ever since.
And you guys did something very rare. Because, okay, we've taken in, I think,
Hold that
Iris.
thought for 1 second.
Sure.
Intermission.
We still rolling? Yeah, we're rolling. I want all of you watching this. I didn't even get, I had a few questions in my mind that I wanted to ask you. I haven't even gotten there, which is great. I love it. I love just hearing your story. I love bouncing around. I would keep going for 3 hours, but I have a call with Heidi that I can't miss. If I miss that, I will. Yeah,
No,
it's not a good thing.
We all have lives and schedules.
But would you ever come back?
Of course.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do, you guys who are watching. If there's any questions you would like me to ask Scott, and I'm sure you got a ton, because and I have a ton right now after listening to this. I did my best not to do any research. We've met twice in person, maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
There's a ton of questions I want to ask you. So, and if you guys have them, I want you to put them in the comments, and we will get you back on.
Sure.
Are you just being nice?
No, I'm
Don't
honored.
be nice.
No.
I would love to.
You're kind of fun to hang out with. Even though next time I want you to do most of the talking because I need to learn. But
see, Scott, number one, you do this professionally. You are a professional talker. You go around and you give speeches.
Yeah.
You also go and you do different. You do the Olympics, right? You
Used
do
to, yeah.
You don't anymore?
I don't know. We'll see. I've done the last 9, but I don't know if I'm doing the next one or not. I'm not going to pursue. It's a complicated thing.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Jean-Luc, we took a break. You were talking about
Jean Paul.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So just quickly on Jean Paul, he went through a lot of trauma. We got him the help. Mm-hmm. And he just said, we talked to his therapist, and he said, I met a lot of young people.
Yeah.
I've never met anyone with his level of trauma. And you think about growing up in Haiti with all the voodoo rituals, and it's a really tough place, but it's so fertile. It just feels like something needs to happen there. Yeah. Because if it can't continue the way it is,
right.
It's right now, especially, it's dangerous and it's awful.
I mean, we have missionaries there. They've been on the podcast. If people look back maybe about 6 episodes or so, they can see the podcast with our missionaries that we extracted. Now they're back in.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
With gangs and the leadership.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And you guys adopted
Barbecue. I mean, a guy named Barbecue is running the country, and he's it's organized crime. It's always been organized crime, but at least it had a little facade of government.
Right.
But that's the problem with Haiti is it's organized crime. The whole country is.
Yeah, and there's just copious amounts of corruption.
Oh, it's just everywhere.
It's crazy. But you guys did something. So we've in Iris, we've taken in, I think, over 8,000 kids have been taken in over the years. Very rarely. We don't do a ton of adoptions in Iris just because Mozambique's very closed for adoption. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. But most adoptions, people will only go after babies. Yeah. How old were your 2 kiddos?
13 and 11.
That is so unheard of.
Yeah, but we saw the Lord in all of it. We had 3 no's and then 3 yeses. And none of them, it was just, after the first no, I'd say, well, it's kind of a weird regulation, but it's over.
Yeah.
And then we're like, it doesn't feel like it's over. And then it wasn't over. And then another no came, and it was like, okay, that was just ridiculous. And that one went away. And then the third one was kind of like, ugh. And then we're like, well, we're in God's hands. And then that one went away as well. So we got 3 mountains moved.
Yeah.
And we were to bring these children home into our families. And we love and adore them. But it's, I understand the whole idea of being in a home, and as much as you're in the home and you're of the home and you have the name and you have everything else, you may or may not feel attached to that home.
Yeah.
And
especially when you've missed those early years, the most formative.
The attachment years, the bonding years are really important. But in the best of situations, adoption is always going to have that little bit of a gap. Just that little thing that isn't with birth children, right?
Right.
But raising children is complicated no matter what.
Yep.
Yeah, no matter, like in the best of situations, there's always going to be challenge, and there's always going to be obstruction. There's always going to be those periods of, absolute battle, Yeah. But that's just the way it is, And how does God feel about us, because we're always in rebellion. We're always in separation. We're always, doing things that I'm sure he's like looking at us doing that look, right? The one you just did, like,
yes.
Oh, come on.
Yes.
Really?
It is such.
Really? Come on.
Everybody, at least from the outside, people love, I think one of the things that people loved about Iris, right? Early on was the stories of Heidi going and taking kids off the streets. James says true religion is tending to the orphan and the widow and looking after them in their distress. Right? There's something really pure about that. And the church loves orphan care. But very few actually get into it. And very few actually serve in that. Very few actually take them in. And the church sends their money, which is great. But
yeah, like Megan Boudreau, I think, has it right in Haiti. She realized that most of the orphans in Haiti were economic orphans. They had parents. And so what she did was she said, we're not going to set up an orphanage. We're going to set up a school and all the infrastructure so that children have a place to come and eat and be fed, in every way possible, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. And then they can go back to their homes.
Right.
And that just was the best way she could do it. And it really makes a lot of sense when you see it. And she's adopted, 13 of those kids, something ridiculous?
Yeah.
It's just outrageous. But in that, it's easy to send 12,000 pounds of rice to Haiti. And we're just, and it feels really good. But now every single farmer in Haiti has no market. Yeah. Oops. So you've got to be really strategic about your philanthropy, and you've got to make sure that whatever you do doesn't disrupt the ecosystem.
It's so true.
And allows families to stay together and allows communities to be whole.
Yep.
But again, that's a whole nother conversation.
No, so you made a point there. 75% of all kids in large-scale children's homes have either a mother or father that's still alive. That's just an international statistic. So they're not actually truly orphans. So, and you said, economic orphans, right? And that's a real thing. Parents, they don't have money. They're in a very difficult place, so that's how
so much of child trafficking happens. Is they say, "You'll take care of my child."
Yeah.
Oh yes. You'll educate them and feed them. Oh yes. And then they go straight into.
Yeah.
It's, it's hard.
The same amount of money it takes to give a kid a bed in a home, in a large-scale children's home, which is not conducive for proper maturation or being loved well, is reintegration, right? So you find a family member, you find a mother or father, and you actually finance that. You finance bringing in the best help, counselors, caseworkers that can actually work and maintain to make sure that the home is safe and the child's being taken care of. It costs the same amount to do that and get them with an aunt, an uncle, a mother, a father, a grandmother or grandfather that's still alive. It costs the exact same amount than running large-scale children's homes.
But you get to that fork in the road, right?
Yeah.
So my daughter, if we hadn't have brought her home, she wouldn't be in college right now.
Right.
She wouldn't be dreaming of building an extraordinary life. I don't know if I'm going to go into finance. I don't know if I'm going to go into law. I've got all these opportunities. I've got all this amazing thing. It's just mind blowing, all the things that she would have 3 children right now.
Oh yeah.
She's 20 years old. She may have 4 children right now, and she'd be living in a cinder block thing with no dirt floor and wondering where the next meal's coming from.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to make this, that can sound really bad to people saying, how can you generalize?
Right.
I know where she's from, and I know all of it. And I saw a lot of those kids in that orphanage, and as they started growing into maturation and they started, their spirits just died.
Yeah.
And it only makes, to me, it just means that there's a lot of abuse happening.
Yeah.
When a girl gets to a certain age, and so
probably
for
very
us,
similar in Africa.
For us, whether or not she understands it, or I don't care if she ever really does, we know, the Lord knows, this is what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we were obedient.
Yeah.
And just to listen to the chaotic and crazy wild dreams of my daughter, it just is, it makes me happy.
Yeah.
I have no idea where she's going to end up. Neither does she.
Right.
but at least she has
right.
us, right? Whether she wants to acknowledge that or, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And she now has dreams, hopes, and aspirations, and she wants to go back to Haiti.
Yeah.
And she wants to be a part of the solution.
I love it.
And that's great, but none of that could happen if we didn't go through the process and, just the chaos of bringing older kids into our home.
You've done a lot with your life, Scott. You've done a lot, man. So just listening here, you work on multiple foundations. You have multiple foundations. And I just want to give an opportunity for you to share how people can get in touch, sew in, do whatever, just connect. What are those places?
ScottCares.org is the biggest thing right now. It's the one thing that, my mom died of cancer. I survived. Why? Because 2 research scientists in Indiana figured out how to cure me, right? So I was a fundraiser after I lost my mom, and now I'm more of an activist. And we really want to change the way people are treated for cancer forever. So we only invest in immunotherapy and immune response to the cancer. And it was funny that 3 years after we put that stake in the ground, the first immunotherapy drug hit the market.
So cool.
And now that's where everything's going now. I did talk yesterday with a guy who had stage 4 melanoma and immunotherapy. He's living his life, and he was given months to live.
I love it.
And he's years later, so the science is way up here and the funding is way down here. And if we could bridge the gap, we can save more lives. So for whatever reason, I'm in that world. I didn't choose it. It chose me. And, to honor Scott Williams, we're still doing research in glioblastoma. My mother died of metastatic melanoma breast cancer. And we funded a study 3 years ago. Like everyone that contributed to CARES funded a study 3 years ago that went into clinical trial this year.
Come on.
Yeah. 47 years after I lost her.
Wow.
So that's 47 years of fundraising and activism.
Wow.
And now there's maybe a chance that we have an immunotherapy drug to treat that form of cancer.
Come on.
It's just, but it's time,
Yeah.
And there's so much to talk about.
So Scott Cares. What else? What else you got going on?
I'm working on the academy. I've got my children, and I've just been involved in a lot of different, I'm involved in a lot of different charities and things, and I'm pretty much the yes guy.
You can't be that on a board. They need pushback.
Yeah. Well, I always say, maybe you should be doing it this way, but I'm not that smart. But I don't know. I've been blessed to really be able to interact with a large community of people, and God is good, and the more I live this life, I just had my 66th birthday, and my dad didn't have that one. He didn't get to have that one. So I feel a sense of, obligation.
Yeah.
That I need, now that I've been given this extra life, that I need to do something with it. And so I'm doing the best I can.
I think you and Heidi have the same birthday.
August 28th?
I think that's what I think it is. Is he 28th or 27th or 20? I don't know. 29th.
Yeah, it's funny because Michael Jackson was the 29th the same year, so he was born a day after me.
Yeah.
One of these things is not like the other. I always wanted to meet him. Just say, I was here 24 hours before you, and we got a lot to talk about.
Most interesting person you've ever met.
Oh, wow. Most interesting person I've ever met.
And then I got to wrap this up.
Oh, yeah, I got to wrap this up. A most interesting person I've ever met. Wow, that is, I think it's probably, I would say Carol Holding.
Okay.
And
Why?
a close second is Maria Miller. I think because they're both older women in my life that have both had enormous impact. Carol Holding started with nothing, and she and her husband Earl just started with this orchard that they managed, and they took over an abandoned hotel, and then they built this light, and they owned Sun Valley, Idaho, and they just created this thing, and they worked hard, and it was the long career thing, and they've become like Carol, and we visit her every year in Sun Valley and in Salt Lake, and Maria has been like a mom to me. When I started this sort of mission of taking cancer into activism, she came alongside me.
Wow. She
lost so many members of her family to cancer, and she's one of those that really are a neon flashing sign of, for those who've been given much is required, and she is a steward of that. She came alongside. We together raised tens of millions of dollars for the Taussig Cancer Center and their research and all the programs with chemocare.com and with the Fourth Angel Memory Program. And she and I were just joined at the hip, just changing the world and just taking a loss. And she's had lots of it and activating that loss into action. And so those two, just to sit and listen to them and the lives that they've lived and just how they've lived them, two totally different stories.
Yep.
But both women of advanced age that have a mountain of unique experiences that just those experiences. And Helen McLaren, who was my sponsor, was the most fascinating woman ever.
Incredible.
So I don't know why I didn't think of her first.
No, I love it.
But it's like these women that have come into my life that have just have gone beyond all the obstruction. And I mean, when Helen's husband Frank died, she was sort of like the entrepreneur in the family, and she couldn't get a credit card because everything was in his name. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it's seeing these stories of growth and redemption, and these stories of these women that have created these gigantic lives, just showing up every day in faith and using that to be extremely generous to others. That really rocks my world. I love that.
Final minute. I hate to do this. Blades of Glory.
The most fun I've had.
You were in it?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm the commentator in it.
Oh my gosh, you were.
I was, yeah. And I had so much fun doing it. It was hilarious. So we're on.
I love, by the way, I shouldn't say that. I'm a big Will Ferrell fan.
It's a Blue movie, but it's Will Ferrell's best movie ever, I think.
Did you spend a lot of time with him?
A little bit, yeah. He's a normal guy until the camera goes on. I could tell you a million stories. Right. But we were doing all of our commentary scenes, and he goes, the director came up and he goes, "Hey, Scott, I need you to come with me." And I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "Will just wrote an interview scene. He wants you to do an interview in the Kiss and Cry area." I go, "Cool." So we did this thing. We did like 3 takes of it, and it was all I could do to control myself in it because I was laughing so hard.
So funny.
And there are so many cameos in that movie, and Max, my youngest, he quotes a lot of them, and they're. My favorite moment was when Sasha Cohen caught Will Ferrell's jock.
Oh,
and she smelled it. And she goes, "I love you, Jazz." Like, Sasha Cohen is very, and she's just very controlled, and she's very late. And that would never happen, ever. And the way anyway. It's a million stories. That's a whole nother time.
We're gonna leave it on that because I have to jump on a call with the head of Iris, Heidi, who we love. And
God bless Iris.
Oh, dude, listen, this I don't say this to a lot of people. I definitely want to get you back on
anytime.
And people are gonna ask a ton of questions in the comments.
Yeah,
and we're gonna come and just do a rapid fire.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know me. I could talk for an hour on glass of water.
I really enjoyed this, Scott. Listen, guys.
I was nervous.
Why?
I don't know. It's just like, this is such a huge platform, and I don't profess to be a theologian.
This is not a huge platform at all.
Well, and I just love Jesus, and I think if I can, whatever I can do to to allow other people to understand what he is, who he is, and how he is, and where he is in their lives. It's just
what I loved about your story is it's just a unique journey of you and the Lord.
You heard some of it.
And and we'll get into more of it next time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So guys, hit like, hit subscribe. Tell them to do that.
Hit subscribe. Just do that, and then we can. Next time we'll talk. It'll just be you and me and Will, and we'll just hang out and we'll have some fun, and you can just ask anything.
Yeah, let's do it.
And now I'm really nervous.
No, it's gonna be good. Listen, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next episode of the Iris Global Green Room. Scott, you're a gem, man. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Will.
I appreciate it.
Love you.
We'll see you guys.
Heidi!